Okay, guys, I'm just going to take a minute here and kind of explain this essay graphic organizer. So this is the exact same thing that you guys did for the most dangerous game. And so, except this is the digital version of it. All right, so the first slide here with actual information on it explains what you should have in your intro paragraph. Okay, and that's on slide 3. This is your intro paragraph. So if you need further direction, go back here. And then the middle explains what should go in your body paragraphs. So when you get to slide 4, 5, and 6, if you're not quite sure, come back and read here. Now, on the bottom left, it gives you some ways to introduce a quote, which those are also embedded on the body slides. And then it also tells you how to use quotation marks and then do your citation. Now, in this example here that they have, it says Rowling 1. You don't have to put the author's last name on ours because ours is only from one text. So since we introduce our person or text at the beginning, we don't have to put a last name. You just have to put the page number and use the page numbers that are on the bottom of the printout that I gave you. So it's like 170 something or whatever it is. All right, so this is just kind of extra information stuff. Now, on slide 3 where it says intro paragraph, this top chunk. Now these boxes are huge, okay? You're not going to fill the whole thing up and that's fine. But you need to do a tag, which is your title, author, and genre. So you're going to say something like the Scarlet Ibis is a heartbreaking short story written by James Hurst, in which um, a young boy is disappointed when his baby brother is born with issues or something like that. Okay. And then you're going to write me a couple more sentences of summary. So this whole tag with the summary is going to probably be about 3 sentences, maybe 4, somewhere in that area. Now, down below here in this other box, I wrote the claim already for you. It says write a claim or thesis statement. I wrote it for you. You just have to leave it right here. The author of the Scarlet Ibis uses symbolism throughout the story to act as foreshadowing for Doodle's death. So all the symbolism that we see, all of those things double as foreshadowing, okay? So we had the bleeding tree, we had the Scarlet Ibis that fell out of the bleeding tree, and we had the storms coming in. All of those things go with this, all right? So now what you need to do for your 3 body paragraphs, in each body paragraph, you're going to focus on one symbol, okay? So maybe for body paragraph 1, you focus on, I would save the best for last, okay? So I'd maybe save the birds for last. It's up to you. Maybe the first one, you talk about the color red. So to begin with, James Hurst uses the symbol of the color red, or you could do images of death. All right. So you just need to, what you're going to do then on this line is you're just going to write what your symbol is. Uses a symbol of images of death, uses the symbol of the color red, and put that there. All right. Then down here, you need to introduce your evidence. Okay. So in this top part, you're going to say something like, um, one important part, let's say you did the color red. So James Hurst uses a symbol of the color red. Down here, you're going to say then, um, an important part of the story that uses the color red is when brother shows Doodle his mahogany coffin. Mahogany is a red wood. I don't remember if we had written that one down or not, but that would be one, okay? Or that would also work for a symbol of death. Either one. Okay, so we introduce it. So, like I just said, one example is when brother shows Doodle his mahogany coffin and makes him touch it. Okay, and then you'll come down here and say the author writes. Okay, and then you'll pull the quote from the text. Find something where brother show is making him touch it or something like that, and then you can just type that in here. So according the author writes, comma, and then quote, put the text or the quote in there from the text. And then remember at the end of it, you have to put the quotes and then the page numbers in parentheses and then the period afterward. All right. So that is that chunk. So this is all one body paragraph, but it's just basically 4 little pieces. So first we state what the symbol is, we introduce it, tell what's going on in the story here in the middle, then we quote it, and then we justify it, okay? So now you're not just justifying that this is red, okay, but you're also justifying why it acts as foreshadowing, okay? So we could use, if we're using the mahogany coffin, let's say that's the one you're going to go with, then you would say, when brother forces Doodle to touch his own red wooded, and you could use the word red rather than mahogany, but whatever, coffin, it foreshadows Doodle's death. The readers know that Doodle did survive longer than he was supposed to, but the reader can also assume that his death is yet to come or something along those lines, okay? And that's where you justify it. That's where you explain it. All right, 2 to 3 sentences explain what kind of symbol it is. So the mahogany coffin is representative of the color red, okay? And this is foreshadowing because, or something like that. All right, 2 to 3 sentences justifying it. You can say it a million different ways. When you get to body paragraph 2, now you're going to use one of your other symbols, okay? So we ended up having 4 symbols total. We really focused on the color red, images of death, and the birds. But then at the end, we had the weather, and we talked about that a little bit. So you could use the weather. All right, so another example of symbolism is found when you could say like the dark clouds are moving in. Because remember, when they started running from the last their last kind of adventure together, and they decided that Doodle had failed and he wasn't going to make it, but they talk about the clouds, dark clouds moving in. So that would be an example. So another example of symbolism is found when the author mentions stormy weather, okay? And then you're going to explain, okay, after, Doodle fails, blah, 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 something about storms moving in. Then again, you're going to quote it. And then you're going to explain that, this is an example of a weather symbol and it foreshadows Doodle's death because, and you're going to explain it. And then you do the same thing one more time with another type of symbol. One last symbol used by Hearst is, and I would use the bird last, is birds. Okay. And then you would choose, and there's a couple good ones. Obviously, there's the Scarlet Ibis part of this, which is obviously good for obvious reasons. But then there's also the crows, and we talked about that, crows meaning death. So either one would be really great for you to use here. So explain it, what is going to happen, and then we're going to quote it. You can't just slap a quote in there. You got to preface it, set it up to make it make sense. So we do that, we quote it, and then again, we justify just like we did on the last one, and talk about how it's foreshadowing. Okay? Now, at the very, very end, you have your concluding paragraph. Now, the concluding paragraph is pretty close to the same thing as your intro paragraph, except it's kind of flipped. Sorry. You start with a transition word, all right? You can restate your claim. Now, if you go back to your intro paragraph, your claim is what I wrote here. So you have to rewrite this in your own words, in different words, okay? The author of the Scarlet Ibis uses symbolism throughout the story to act as foreshadowing. So you need to tell me that. So to conclude, James Hurst uses a variety of symbols to act as foreshadowing throughout the Scarlet Ibis, or something like that. Okay. Now you summarize your story. Okay. Tell me again, or summarize your evidence. So just tell me um, the 3 different types of symbols and give us a little bit about each one. Okay. So James Hurst used the color red throughout the story in examples such as the mahogany coffin and even um, the color of the ibis. Later in the story, he used the symbol of weather, okay, and storm clouds coming in that predicted something bad happening. And then finally, he used blah, blah, blah. And you can talk about the birds. And then you need a concluding sentence that offers the reader some final insight, okay? Now, you have to make sure that this all flows together because these 3 chunks are all one paragraph. Each page on here is a paragraph. And I'm going to give you the document next to have to actually set that up and type the whole thing up, and actually should be able to copy and paste to some extent. But anyway, concluding sentence that offers the reading some final insight. I would say something about throughout this heartbreaking short story, brother learns, and then I would say something about how pride can get the best of you, or how people often push their loved ones too far for their own selfish reasons, something along those lines. All right. And then that is the end of this. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to post, and I'll do that probably tomorrow, a blank document where you're going to type this whole thing up in 5 paragraphs. And if you look at it, each one's labeled. So this is your intro paragraph. So it's going to stick together, and then body paragraph 1, 2, 3, and then your concluding paragraph. If you have major issues, questions, etc., and you have listened to this whole entire thing, please, please, please email me and I will try to help you as much as I can. I will be back in class Wednesday of next week. All right. I miss you all. I hope you're doing well, and I will see you soon.